and we're live. Yeah, so I'm gonna share my entire screen, because if I only share a window it will be hell. So I share my entire screen, and keep in mind that you see a bit more than what's caught on the camera, so I will try to stay in this square up here. And so what I've done since last time we looked at this is worked further on the integration of view model editing when in web view. So currently it looks like this. If you go into a view model, you can there's only one button here, web app prototype edit mode, and we're gonna look at both this standard when we have a grid, and also when we have placing containers, and how it looks and how we can edit it. But once we open up, we click this button, we get yet another view, and this view is synced to this view model editor. So if I were to close this view model editor, this will close as well, because these go in pair, and I can have multiple pairs, of course, if I have multiple view model editors. But why they are connected and why that is a good thing is well, we're gonna come to that in just a minute, but first I'm gonna focus on this server setup, because before it was rather cumbersome to get the turnkey prototype server to run. You had to go into the play button and press and do the settings, but now these settings has been moved into this window, so it's really easy to just fold this down and either check the turnkey install, see if it's running my file, which it's currently is not, so I can restart the turnkey server. And as I restart it, I can see that it highlights in green here. That's the file we actually working on. It's running now. And then I can close this, and the syncing then. So whenever I change a view here, this view model editor follows along. So if I go to a specific view here, this one detects that we are now in view value store and switches to that. So if I had more room on the screen, it would be really easy to see the effect of doing changes in this end and having them propagate to this end, or on the other hand turn on edit mode here and doing changes in this end to have it propagate to the other way. So there's really no you can work either way, and I think that will be a great benefit when fine-tuning the design for a specific application. So that's how that worked. Let's see if I were to change this to use placing containers instead. I'm going to add a few placing containers just to show. Yeah, I'm going to move that up. I'm putting the buttons in this one. So what we have, let's do a fit here. So it looks like this. Now the placing container shows up as these frame boxes, and this will go away if I uncheck the edit. So currently they add some space, and the space is there for us being able to grab them and see where they start and stop, but the space introduced sort of distort the presentation. So when I click away this edit mode, it sort of shrinks a bit, but still the space is needed in order to really get a good handle on this. Now I can simply grab something in one and drop it on something else that already is in another placing container, and then that will go there. And I can also grab something and drag it and drop it on this sort of tab for the placing container in order to move it to another one. So both these scenarios are valid. And as this is linked, I can easily see what happens if I change this. If I select this placing container, I can see that it says select PC view value store, and that is also selected here in the view model editor, and that makes it easy for me to have the notion that I want this not to be a row but rather a column, and then I would change this to a column, and that would immediately have effect here. And if I select this one and see that this is a row, and the align, the justified content on that is start. If I were to change that to something else, so it moves here, it will immediately follow. And if I choose to have it on start but say that it's allowed to grow, all right, why was that? This one is allowed to grow. So and then I have done the changes there. So really tight integration between changing stuff in the web versus changing stuff in the model. And note that I haven't saved the changes as of yet in the model. Whenever I change stuff in the model, that will restart the application as before, so it will blink, so it's restarted. So my aim is to do this to have a much better environment for doing the web design stuff. So Alex, please feel free to react to how you think this. Wow, it's echoing. Is it only me? No. Okay, so
I'm actually really it's a really nice way of improving how improving your development environment, especially with the components and all of the forms that you want to add, and seeing back and forth how it looks, and the whole idea and wrap is really nice. But I just want to maybe even develop it even more. Just have a few suggestions and ideas that we might implement and make it even more usable, and we can go further with this. As I like the way that we can handle, add it in both ways, like from designer to the turnkey and turnkey to designer, back and forth. And what I am particularly interested in at this level is this turnkey to designer kind of editing mode that you presented right now. And if you ever worked in Webflow, or if you know what the Webflow is, it's basically use the same like layout as other so-called like tools for web designers, for front-end developers that make prototypes, UI, UX and stuff. It's like it has the same layout as Figma, as Sketch, and any other Adobe tool for front-end development. They have like this layout when they have like I will send you a screenshot of that we might actually reuse and incorporate it into our into this view edit mode, like view editor in the edit mode. And yeah, can I send it?
You showed me that earlier, Alex, and I think basically what we have there is that to the left they have a tree like we do,
Yeah.
and to the right, not on top of the design, that to the right they have the settings. So Hans, that's also, now we see this, you wonder, it's like, ooh, can we put the properties of these things to the right there, and then you can just like, ooh, change it. Cool.
Yeah, so are you talking about these properties goes into the view? Yeah. So
I just wanted to send you a picture, but we don't have any kind of access, and I just want to
do it over Slack then, and I can bring it up.
And it's just better explanation of how we can handle our layout, maybe further even in the designer. But it's really nice to have it there because it includes like styles with all of the universal like icons for all of these columns, rows, and flexbox stuff handling. So we can really use that because it's kind of, as I said, it's used all over, like the tools that you use for front and like
so if it's a consensus in the world how these things are described, we should definitely piggyback on that.
Mm-hmm. That's just my suggestion on development of this idea. Yeah. We'll go
so what that was my initial plan, to have the settings from the view model here, but then it dawned on me that we will steal screen space, and I'm not sure. I didn't wanted to rework this too much, so what I've done this far is to pull everything out in its own control, so it's easily movable if we want to move it. But if we move this one, we must have the tree as well, and then we get maybe into, I see here they have really small fonts on the tree, and really detailed small fonts here as well, and I think that's just to save space, to leave as much space as possible for the actual canvas to design. So, but I'm sure this is not the end of it, but it's also most important to get us started and get going, and to have some momentum. So this was given that most of us have lots of screen space, we can benefit from pulling things out on different screens to see what happens and change things.
Yeah, it's totally like, of course, it's adaptable, it's collapsible in different ways. You have different options there. Especially you have this like ability to like right click and have like options in each of that fields, in each of that areas that you're working with. So yeah, it's just a suggestion, but it's universally usable like layout like this for creating content. If you're working with draggable stuff, you want to move things around, and yeah, that would be a good step. But the thing that we already have right now in this live responsive. I'm sorry, I mean responsive, not in the mobile or desktop version, but live responsiveness of what you're currently working on. That's a good like idea, but we need to stay. I think we need to choose between like this live update of your pages and the navigation, like in this editor, or rather like talking about like local core stuff that we are using with a local server with a local server, because we have so many different tools for putting it locally, and it's kind of like confusing. So we just need to clarify that it's we have different tool for basically the same stuff. So yeah, that's why I think that might be confusing, but yeah, we need to clarify that, I guess. Even
Yeah, so even if it's a strength in some way to be able to see the live data, because then the data will of course affect the design. If the text is large, it looks one way, and if it's so this is a good thing compared to the classic design tools. They never have data in them, but it is also a complexity, because what if something is hidden during certain circumstances? How we will design that? So we can't completely give up the static design time view, but still we need this dynamic, if we will call it that. It has the data, it's the running application. This, I like to think about it like when they're doing brain surgery. Sometimes they keep the patient awake just because when they poke around, they need to talk to the patient to see what happens, so they don't do any damage, to know that they are the right place. And this is sort of that kind of brain surgery, that it's running and you're fixing details as it runs.
One maybe general question is there a way to run this and connect the MDriven server, I guess, to an SQL database?
So there's lots of different answers to that. So the shortest one is it would be we could do it like that, but as soon as you do a simple change, like if you're in this expression and you sort of want to filter on something, so select, and then you say something, and something isn't there, and you do, well, it's a new attribute, something, and that's a string, and you're done. Then your model is different, and and then we need to make the user, the developer, aware of this won't run. So this won't run until I save this. Then it will run. But then of course I change the expression so that no data is available. I'm gonna remove that. Maybe I will say.
The reason I ask is that sometimes I feel that it's so much setup to do to be able to use data in a demo situation.
Yeah. So two things to address that is that the debugger was brought into this view. So here I have value store values, and it's easy for me to access the debugger connected to the same file. It's running for the same file. So if I do value stores and bring up the seeker and create some new and save that, and then close the debugger. And yeah, sometimes I will need, because we don't have this service sync between the XML files, so it's easy enough to restart it to make sure that we actually see it. So these are some of the things that we will need to maybe do a bit easier. But that's one way to sort of reduce the problems with that kind of issues. And also another thing might be that you have modal windows, and modal windows won't lend themselves to this kind of edit, because that's floating on top and everything is out of whack. So, but then we're able to sort of force in a specific URL here instead. So you can go deep links to present a specific view without the need to actually navigate to it and to come around different
problems. You can open it as a non-modal, even if it's designed for being in a modal.
Yeah. Yes, so good. So we talked about this tab that makes the setup of this needed server easier, and we talked about this tab that brings in the full debugger for this same system to make it easier to either create data or look at data or debug data and step data to see why things happen. And then we have this middle button, and that's not finished, but the idea here is to be able to display the files from the asset TK. So all the files in that tree, if there are any, will be available, and there will be a checkbox for each saying that we should watch it for changes, and if there are changes we should save it to the server as well immediately. So what this will bring to the table, I think, is that we can just switch to this tab and say that I want to subscribe to changes in TK user CSS, or these user CSS that you have added, then is for that could be unique per window or per view. So and then once you subscribe to them, and you can click up those and work with them in your favorite CSS tool or JavaScript tool or what file it is. Any changes you do and save will be immediately transposed to the server, and then you can only do a refresh here to see the effect immediately. So I think that will also reduce the learning curve, how to understand how to inject your own extras in form of CSS and JavaScript things. And also, once we have that tab that shows the files from the assets TK, we haven't really mentioned the assets TK anywhere in the UI. It's just it's mentioned in the wiki, and if you name it like this it will work. But in this tab is the first place where we have a reason to talk about it further, and we could add buttons for templating a assets TK, or templating, do you want to add a component, press this button. Now you have all the placeholders for a component with a specific name. Now you can fill in the details. So my hope is that that tab would bring everything much tighter and closer, and making this sort of one window where you can really tune your CSS and JavaScript stuff, as well as move around widgets within the placing containers if that is what you need. So that's the plan, and then that's how far I've gotten as of now. What we can do, maybe, yeah, you're supposed to be able to drag the whole placing container as well, and if you drop it on another one of the same level, they will only swap positions, sort of. So now that's on top and that's on the bottom. But if you hold down, yeah, now it's too. Yeah, so I'm gonna zoom out to be able to. If you drop it on the same level but hold control at the same time, it actually will move it into the other one, and then this turns green because it's one level down. So this way you can do everything that you could do in this view, but just moving stuff around. And yeah,
really cool. I guess this would also work then if you have a overridden or you put a component in here, they will render, and then
exactly. So
this will probably work so you can move them around the same way.
yes. So that's my hope. The inner details can't be moved, but the whole component as such can then be moved, and so that's one of the good things about not actually being in an edit mode. It's live and runtime, because then everything will render just as is.
One thing that I just was thinking about when I saw this, that the component library that was referenced to us, and I was thinking about what that wants, and if you look at components in AngularJS and then Angular, is that they want, a little package of data, you could say. So it's like a root, and then there's several pieces of data. And we have this pattern that we have the name and then underscore or something. But one thing I wonder about sometimes is if it would be helpful actually to say that the blue view model parts should only be for basically, but you could also like say this is self, and then the blue part should basically be shown inside the green, or at least that's how you should think about it. So in that way you could build the definitions to send to a component. I don't know exactly how to put it, but so that we would have the ability to define little contracts. But maybe,
Yeah.
it's
But
the
we're
same
working
thing,
on that.
basically service.
Right. So and Dennis, that's one of your tasks, right? So
Yes.
and
But
that would be
how
good to
define it
once we have that in production. It would be good to see how we could maybe work with exposing the ability to introduce your own following these small contracts straight into a view like this to edit a small snippet of HTML that actually becomes the component. And if everything is wrapped in a TK component, as I assume it will be, it will also work as like this, that you can grab it and move it around.
I wasn't thinking of the HTML per se. I was thinking about the data contract.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
but I think we need to get the first thing out the door before discussing how it should.
I agree. I'm just seeing that as, the cool next step. Because when you see this, you all of a sudden realize, like, wow, we could do custom components inside our designer. We have never had that ability. And then, wow, then if we can like make them, actually you can import, and maybe there's even a file in that we can read and see what it wants, and then you can just hook up the data binding as we have before, but now like a more structured way of doing it. And then all of a sudden, boom, we could have a UI editor that is fully extendable, really powerful. Because no one wants to make these components right for inside our old designer, but here all of a sudden the web browser helps us build things together.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully, and we have talked about a HTML-based editor, and this is sort of a middle way that we still are in the installed application or the click once application, but we're still doing web things, and I think this is much more doable for us moving forward faster to get everything. Given 10 years, maybe all of the stuff is available in the web view, and we can reduce the need to use the installable application or the click once application. So at least this will greatly improve the manageability of doing large system. And one other thing when working with large system is to find your way. We always have the ability to name a view or present the view as actions, not naming it exactly the same as the view model is called. That's generally not the best of ideas, but it's possible. And then you always have to do this lookup. What is this called? This action, what will it bring up? Oh, it will bring up that one. Now, having it like this in a large system, it will be quite easy to know where you're at and where to change. So that might be faster as well. And these edit dots, maybe we could have them on actions as well to be able to click up the action to change that straight up to. But we will take one thing at a time.
I think the first step there would be to have the opt-out option. That's the most common things, like, I want to opt it out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I don't know if Alexandra remembers. They have a problem with the audio from you, Alexandra.
No, I think it's the echo canceller. It's takes some iterations.
Well, we tested today, so because of the problem with the audio, Alex, so if you have a project in Visual Studio 2019 and you upgrade to 2022, you will have this problem that I wrote about, that it doesn't save and there's problems and this and that. Horrible. I don't know if you saw that. I lost a whole day's of work with it. I worked a ton and didn't notice, and I have this really tricky model changes, and then it was all gone and you can't generate code. But there's a simple solution, and I don't think we need to really address it, Hans. You need to remove the VS, the hidden .vs folder.
Okay.
And then open it in 2022 and it works.
Because it's some Visual Studio backup stuff that has changed format.
There's something with the code generation or something like it that goes wrong. I think it's not worth investing time in, really, now that we know what the issue is. And I don't know if you have had the time to write in the wiki, Alex?
Yeah, I actually started, but we have pretty long meeting, and we had some dinner. So, yeah, I'm just gonna finish it today and just let you know where did I put it. I'm putting it actually in the Visual Studio 22 article on the wiki. Yeah, so there will be like a little instruction of how to resolve that problem. So that will be on the wiki.
Good. Yeah, good. So these functions that I've described now, they are checked in, so please try to get them working. If when you press this button and you're on an older Windows version than 11, it might not, the WebView 2 that this requires, the Chromium based control to use in VPF, might not be installed on your machine, and then you're supposed to be notified and get an instruction on how to download it. So it should then, one needs to do that, but I've checked that from Windows 11 that one is installed by the operating system. So I think we will start to use that and remove, we'll use it in this view as well, because I noticed at the client site this came up as blocked because it's using Internet Explorer, and they actually decommissioned Internet Explorer to remove it from the computer, so it won't work. So we're gonna use the WebView 2 here instead. So that's a good thing, that Internet Explorer is being decommissioned more and more, so we don't need to support it. Good. Besides that, we have published 2 more chapters on the 1000 Steps education thing, and hopefully, Philip, you can move a little bit ahead and do some diagram implementation for the Migo index thing, if you find your way about it.
Yeah, I've already started.
Good.
Yesterday I started with it.
Yeah. Right. That was the things that I had on my mind for tonight.
I have one question.
Yes.
Last time we talked about moving away from Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any web browser that is desirable more than others at the moment?
I don't know if I said that we're moving away for it. I think that will be the dominant browser for a long time. But it's echoing again. Is it me or?
No, it's good.
It's that Google will soon make it impossible to use ad blockers, or any good ad blockers at least, as it looks like. So it will just mean that Firefox, which is not Chromium based, will maybe have a resurgence. But let's see what happens. I was just mentioning it if you find that that's a problem. But there will be no dying of Chrome for many years.
So
because I found out when I was working on a Python project I'm doing that the ad blockers is disabling my function to load from VS Code to see the project, like when I do a live check and stuff. So I found that. So I've already moved to Firefox because I want to see the projects I'm working on. So I already moved away from Chrome mostly, at least when I'm developing.
But Chromium-based parsing will be the 99% of the market, so that's what we will aim for when checking our compliance and compatibility on on stuff we produce. So that will be, and then we will just assume that those things work in Firefox as well. Firefox is they often invent new stuff, and that's are pretty good and it's desirable for a developer to use. And then maybe you use it, but it won't work anywhere else, and definitely not on iOS with the Safari. So it's better to stay in the Chrome and Safari for testing.
Yeah. Chrome, Safari, and then Firefox as a third option.
Yeah, I always use check stuff on all platforms or all applications. It's just a habit. I've been using Firefox when I'm developing things because it loads up easier. There's no bugging and things show up properly at the moment. At least when I find, especially when working with mainly Python or Django stuff.
So the main reason for us using Chromium in this is the ability to talk to it via code. So we can bring it into a VPF window, and then we can execute JavaScript code that we send in on a string in the document object model, and we can do all kinds of stuff that way. So that's how we inject this edit mode and things like that.
So Edge is also Chromium based, right? So it's an Edge feature, I guess, here, but it's the same thing basically.
And of course, since this is Chrome and Edge, you can just press F12 here to get up this, and then of course it's really good if you want to debug step your JavaScript code. And
so you can do that even if it's embedded.
Yeah. And that also has this 3D view that's totally useless but still cool.
Yeah, I don't know why they've had it. It looks amazing.
Yeah. So Dennis, have you seen that our actions all have different setup indexes?
Yeah, now I can see it.
It's not obvious otherwise. If you look at it straight from ahead, it's okay. Yeah.
I was actually wondering what the reasoning behind adding that was. Like, in what meeting did they have and discuss this? Like, what uses it would have?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I don't know. And especially since it doesn't work for the divs, it's only the widgets. So if it were for the divs, then it would be useful, I think, because then you could see like the placing containers and the how things is built up on set level. But
yeah, because I was thinking if you can see with divs, you can see also if you place a div wrong, like if you place a div inside a div. But you can't. So.
Maybe that's the next version.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe this is the first one, like we do.
So this is good if you want to read everything from behind.
I think really it's like the crucial, not like the crucial but important part of UX experience of the page. So it's how like UX guys can have a look like on the elevation
and see the depths of the components. Like they're trying to interact with each button or any form, how it will, how much of the shadows it should have while focusing on component, how elevated it should be, especially in the mobile version. You need to see how much of the elevation and the depths of the screen it should receive, or how do you call it. So I think that's more for the more advanced advanced interfaces.
Yeah. Good. So let's round it up and have a very Merry Christmas, everyone. So we will see each other in the New Year's.
Yes.
Yes.
When is the next of these meetings?
I think we will skip the one that's the first week of Jan, because I will most likely not be available. And in that case,
18th is probably the next time.
yeah, yes,
In 4 weeks. Yes.
yeah,
So the 8th.
or the 15th, to not break the trend. I think that's the most. No, I was on the wrong month.
18th. 18th.
18th, yeah.
That's at least if we keep
So
the 2
let's
week
see. We
pace.
will send out.
The other, I just wanted to also remind you of the feedback when you have time, just to go over it quickly, and I will send it on Friday so you can have a nice read over Christmas.
You can stop the recording, Hans.
Yes.